Hello, and welcome to segment 2 of the 2016 election panel. Today we are joined by 3 panelists. First we have Dan O'Donnell from News Talk 1130 WISN Radio in Milwaukee.
And second we have Max McCoy from Young Americans for Liberty.
And then we also have Hannah Blia she is the chair of the College Democrats.
Thank you all for joining us today.
No, you're very welcome.
So the first question we have is for the three of you. So given the sheer kind of craziness of the election so far, what do you think is going through the mind of the average American voter?
To be perfectly honest, I think it's information overload. I mean, first we had any number of Donald Trump scandals break in mid-October that really swung the needle toward Hillary Clinton, but then a complete and total wrench was thrown into her victory parade, and that was the reopening of the FBI's investigation. If anything, I think the voters have to weigh whether or not they want a candidate, a president, who's under FBI investigation by the time she is sworn into office in January. And that, I think, is going to be preeminent on the minds of voters when they hit the polls on Tuesday.
You know, I think the refrain that I keep hearing is, how did we end up with these choices? And, you know, it's sort of, I mean, if you're a Republican, you voted for Donald Trump in the primary, essentially. You know, not each individual Republican, of course, but that is the nominee. And for the Democrats, you nominated someone who, you know, is under criminal FBI investigation. So, you know, and then looking at the third-party candidates, it doesn't seem like any of those, you know, seem to be any better, really, in any meaningful way. I think that's essentially it. No one's very happy with their choices.
Well, I think for me, you're either very set on who you're voting for or you're completely undecided at this point. And going towards the election, you either have to make a choice or you have to sit it out. And I hope that people make a choice and, you know, put aside anything that, you know, would sort of upend what we have going right now. If you like it, that's good, vote for Hillary Clinton. If you don't, then sit out or vote for a different candidate.
Good. Okay, so the both of you kind of touched on the reopening of the FBI investigation. So just to give the viewer a little bit more insight on that, recently the FBI discovered 650,000 emails on the computer of former Congressman Anthony Weiner. So in you guys' opinion, what do you think that this is the reopening of the investigation, what impact will it have on Hillary's number and just her numbers in the pollings and then just the minds of the voters and people who maybe already have voted for her?
Well, we've already, we've already seen the polls turn towards Donald Trump, nationally and in North Carolina, one of the key swing states. In fact, a lot of people think this is the key swing state. There was a poll that came out last night. It was Tuesday night. If you're watching this later, we taped on Wednesday, that has Trump up 7. There was an ABC News Washington Post poll that Hillary Clinton was leading by 12 last week. Trump is up 1. The numbers are clearly moving towards Trump with a week to go before this election. The impact on the polling has been astronomical. I mean, you go from a double-digit Clinton lead to a Trump lead in a week. I mean, that speaks volumes, I think, about where the American electorate is. And they're looking at this investigation and saying, well, wait a second, we can't vote for somebody who potentially committed very serious felonies, very serious crimes against the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dan. Last week, we saw the ABC News poll had Clinton up by 13 points. I'm sorry, I believe 11 points. And this week, after the news broke on Friday, we see Donald Trump up by 1 point. So if those polls are to be believed, that would mean that Clinton had a loss of 13 points in a single week, which is huge. And I believe, I think it's NBC News, I'd have to check on that, but there's a survey recently that went out that essentially said that 34% of voters are less likely to vote for Clinton in light of this news breaking last Friday.
I mean, I'm still going to vote for her. I can say that she's the most qualified candidate. I can give you all of that. Investigation, as I understand it, has turned up nothing that we didn't already know, and I've heard some people just condemn Comey for bringing up this investigation so close to the election day. I don't think that's right at all. It hasn't really done anything for me to turn me away from voting for her. I hope that the rest of the United States can see that. I just don't think that it's relevant. It hasn't turned up anything that we didn't already know.
Well, but we don't know. I mean, there were 650,000 potential pieces of evidence in a criminal investigation, and the timetable before the presidential election in a criminal investigation, in a federal investigation, is irrelevant. I mean, this new evidence was discovered roughly a month ago, and obviously there was something significant enough to warrant the FBI going to Congress and saying, look, we have to investigate this further. There was something on that metadata that was discovered on Weiner's computer that points to what I think the FBI has been trying to piece together, and that's a criminal conspiracy with respect to the Clinton Foundation, the trading of State Department favors for donations to the Clinton Foundation, and also speaking fees for Bill and Hillary Clinton herself. It is true there isn't anything found yet. That's why the investigation has been reopened. And the timing is unfortunate for Clinton, but justice knows no timetable. And a criminal investigation needs to proceed and follow the evidence wherever it leads, whenever it happens to arise.
Okay, pretty good. This question is for you, Dan, because I know that you have a law degree, and I also know that piece you did on Hillary Clinton from a while back. Is this recent investigation likely to change James Comey's mind, do you think?
It's not about James Comey per se. Comey, of course, the director of the FBI. I did a piece for my work building a criminal case against Hillary Clinton. I do believe that, yes, the evidence does clearly point to Hillary Clinton with reckless disregard for the national secrets of the United States, acting in a grossly negligent manner with respect to national security. Moreover, I believe that the emails that were leaked from John Podesta, campaign manager's email account, show the dots starting to be connected about why she had that private email server, and that was to conceal evidence of what amounts to, I believe, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, by volume, bribery schemes in the history of the United States, selling State Department access and favors in exchange for either donations to the Clinton Foundation, which we know the vast majority of this money was not going to charities. It was going to people connected with the Clinton Foundation, and in exchange for exorbitant speaking fees for both Bill and Hillary Clinton. So yes, I do believe that this evidence is tending to point to a criminal conspiracy with Hillary Clinton at the head of it. I don't think James Comey has an opinion one way or another. I believe he, as every investigator, needs to follow the evidence and come to the conclusion that the evidence points to.
Great. All right, so we touched on some stuff that Hillary's being accused of, so let's move towards Trump. So what is your guys' opinion on the allegations on these sexual assault cases that are being charges that are being brought up against him? We can start with Hannah.
Well, I think it's absolutely horrible that that these cases are even being brought up, because obviously if women are coming forward, then something happened, allegedly. I don't want somebody who demeans women in that way in the White House. I don't want somebody who has that little regard for women in the White House. It's just, I feel so bad for these women and what they have to go through, and many of these are women who didn't come forward in the past and are not coming forward now, which is great for them for taking that step. It's terrible that we even have a candidate that has that sort of history.
Okay. And just to add on to that, if you guys can just touch on, what do you guys think the truthfulness is behind all these allegations too? You guys want to go ahead?
Oh, that's a difficult thing to say. You did have Trump on tape making lewd comments and everything, so of course that is sort of an invitation for this sort of attack on him to come out. I mean, he did say things, on tape and everything. However, I think it's important to look at the evidence in each of these cases and be very cautious before, we rush to condemn someone. I think in the context of that, those remarks that Trump made on tape, he was clearly being over the top and joking with the, with Billy Bush and everything. I think he's essentially a billionaire jock, so he's going to say things that are, people find crass and everything. But I do think that it is important to look into these accusations, not to dismiss them out of hand. I'd say that there's some questionable, timing. I would say they certainly should be examined, but taken seriously.
But it should be noted that there have not been any criminal charges filed. There has, to my knowledge, not been a lawsuit for sexual harassment filed against Donald Trump. And when you take a look at this, yes, what he said on the tape is inexcusable. I mean, any jock will tell. Nobody talks like that. It's just weird.
Yeah.
It's like weird what he said. But in terms of the women then coming out all in succession, you got to think about this. Donald Trump has been one of the most famous men in America, not just since the Celebrity Apprentice, for 30 years. 1980s, he was one of the best known investors in the world. He wrote The Art of the Deal. It made him a huge celebrity. 1990s, he was very well known, regular guest on Howard Stern, all these shows. He's not accused of sexual harassment once. 2000s, Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice, he becomes one of the biggest and best paid reality TV stars in the world. Not accused of sexual assault, sexual harassment once. He's running for president for more than a year, not accused of sexual harassment once. But the October that he is running against Hillary Clinton, all of a sudden, not one, not two, not three, but 14 different women all of a sudden come out of the woodwork. You have to question the timing there, especially since it's weird, isn't it, that we haven't heard hide nor hair of any of these accusers. One would think if they're finally telling their story, why do they tell it on what appeared to have been one coordinated week, and then we move on to a different attack on Trump's taxes or the Trump Foundation or something like that? The timing just seems very suspect to me.
I do think that details of the stories, too, are somewhat dubious. I think that there are, specific details of most of the cases that have actually been debunked. Melania Trump, for example, one of the accusers, writer for People magazine, said that she saw Melania Trump in New York, several months, I think, after the supposed incident, and Melania Trump has, said on the record that this never occurred and everything. And, obviously that isn't necessarily related to the supposed assault, but if that detail of the story is wrong, I mean, it kind of casts doubt on the whole thing.
Well, and then the People magazine one. This is the amazing thing to me. This writer, in full view, it was a joint interview between Donald and Melania Trump, and this writer claims that during the interview, in front of his wife and cameras, he groped her. She then writes an incredibly glowing story. I mean, it was a wonderful story about Donald and his new bride, Melania. It just does not add up. And then all of a sudden, 15 years later, she's coming out again, the October before, when it's timed, right after the Trump tape drops, right after the second debate, when this is a massive issue, right before the third debate, it's timed for maximum impact to hurt his presidential campaign. I question the motives and question the evidence that suggests to me there isn't a whole lot of truth behind this.
Well, regardless of timing, it should be relevant, and these allegations need to be taken seriously. There's a reason women don't come forward with sexual assault right when it happens. They know that it's not going to be taken seriously, but when you have somebody come forward, that emboldens other people to come forward as well and say, this also happened to me. And once you have that group of people who have said, yes, this has also happened to me, then I definitely think it should be taken seriously and should be investigated fully.
The question, though, that I have is, these weren't incidents where one woman says, oh, yes, this happened to me, too. These were separate stories being worked on at the same time by the New York Times, by People magazine, by, I believe, Vanity Fair, all timed to come out at the same time. Different women from different walks of life, all timed to come out in October, all right? There was never an accusation against him. Do I know whether these accusers are telling the truth? I don't. But I do know a political hit when I see it. I do know the timing of an October surprise. And quite frankly, I think that has to be factored in. Yes, it is serious. It's a very serious allegation. But when you investigate something, you have to take a look at the totality of the circumstances. And a big circumstance here is, no allegations for 30 years, 3 weeks before an election, 15 allegations. That to me is suspicious.
Right. They do need to be taken seriously, but they also need to be investigated. And you can't say that, taking a sexual assault claim seriously means, believing it in spite of, contradicting evidence. It is important to take allegations seriously, but you can also ruin lives that way. And it also is a great way to smear a candidate or really anyone. You can tag them with allegations of sexual assault, and a lot of people are, inclined to automatically believe, which is dangerous. Again, take them seriously, investigate them, but don't automatically believe, because when someone is tagged with that, that's dangerous. That can ruin their career, that can ruin lives. Take them seriously, investigate them. What does the evidence say?
Right. So we're running out of time here, but I just have one more question. Who do you guys think is gonna take this on Tuesday night? It's kind of a loaded question, but just a quick wrap up.
That's very difficult. I still think, despite everything that's happened with the criminal investigation into Hillary Clinton, she's the overwhelming favorite. All the momentum right now is with Trump, but because of Clinton's already sizable lead in the Electoral College, I mean, she's got big states, New York, California, that are never going to go Trump no matter what. So she starts with about 200 electoral votes and only needs roughly 70. Trump has a very narrow path to 270 electoral votes. He has to basically win Florida, Ohio, Colorado, North Carolina, and Iowa, and probably Virginia too. It's going to be very difficult. I would say right now, 60% Hillary Clinton wins, 40% Donald Trump. But as we've seen, anything can happen between now and Tuesday.
Plus, I would imagine she has the entire New England.
Yeah, she does have.
Too.
She has all of New England, New Hampshire. Sometimes goes Republican. That's going to go Democrat. I would say right now she's probably sitting on about 230 electoral votes she can count on, whereas Donald Trump has maybe 190. So it's going to be a race to the final states, and believe it or not, Wisconsin is going to be one of the key swing states that could end up deciding the next president.
Yeah, I think. Let's see. I think the key is turnout. You see a lot of the demographics that were very enthused about Barack Obama that went out and voted for him that are not necessarily as enthused about Clinton. The Trump campaign, on the other hand, does have a lot of enthusiastic supporters, despite, I think the majority of, I've heard the term dumpster fire thrown out a lot to describe the election.
I've definitely heard that as well.
Right, but the Trump campaign does have a lot of enthusiasm behind it. You look at the Trump rallies, and there's massive turnouts there. Clinton rallies, not so much. I think Tim Kaine drew 40? I think 40. Crowd of 40.
He couldn't draw it in Madison. Madison is like the most liberal city in the known universe.
Yeah,
and he wasn't drawing a big crowd there. And granted, he's the running mate, but you're right. That speaks to the enthusiasm.
Right. And I think if the Trump campaign can channel that and it results in turnout, maybe they've got a chance. I don't know.
Well, the latest I saw on the New York Times was it was a 90% in Hillary's favor winning and 10% in Trump's favor winning. So I think it looks good for her. I would say that, if it looks good either way, you should still go out and vote. You can't count on people to just sit home and vote for you, because your vote counts as well. So every vote counts. Go out and vote. Make your choice.
All right. Well, that just about wraps things up here. For Media Milwaukee, I'm Stevan Stojanovic.
And I'm Katarina Vergara.
We'll catch you next time.